Obama overthrowing Gaddafi in Libya and leading to the migrant crisis into Europe was an absolute disaster. Let's also throw in there the attempt, right?
So and bringing in all the refugees to attack Americans.
Hold on, let me just finish my point. Let's also add in there the attempted regime change war in Syria, which we started, that led to 500,000 people dying. Let's also throw in there the war in Yemen, which we backed the Saudis fighting.
Don't forget the Arab Spring.
Something else like 500,000 somewhere in that ballpark also died. When you add up all of the numbers, you're talking about millions and millions of dead innocent people. What responsibility do you have? What responsibility do I have? What responsibility do you have? Are we fair targets now to be murdered because we haven't overthrown the status quo, as you just said? Why is it that we as Americans get to hold these standards against other nations, which we would never dream of imposing on ourselves? The question is always asked, what's Israel supposed to do? Don't they have a right to defend themselves? Do all of these countries that we've slaughtered innocent people in, do they have a right to defend themselves? Do they have a right to come over here and kill innocent civilians? I would say no. They don't have a right to come kill innocent civilians. You have political grievances with the government class, but it does not follow, as Osama bin Laden or Bill Clinton or Barack Obama or George W. Bush would argue, that it then follows that we can inflict this collective punishment against people. If we're going to be the better ones, if we're going to say you're the Islamists, but we're the civilized people, if we're going to represent the best tradition of Western civilization, then the point would be that we don't believe in any of that. We don't believe that you can target innocent men, women, and children. That's what separates us from the savages.
Israel is not targeting innocent women and children.
They absolutely are. If you're going to look at this as an American or as somebody who's supporting the Israeli point of view, and you're going to say, well, look at these savages. They're just so barbaric. Does it not give you pause for a moment that Israel, the United States of America, have for decades been intentionally, strategically, and explicitly supporting the most radical elements of Islam? That America has supported Saudi Arabia, the biggest exporter of Wahhabism in the world, that they've funded, armed, and trained Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and that it was, and I noticed this didn't get a response at all, that it was Israeli policy to support, prop up, and fund Hamas. What should the response be, say, to October 7th? I would say that primarily, first of all, there were active hostages involved immediately. So I would say the first thing, much like what you do when, look, if a hostage, if there's a bank robber and he has a machine gun and he takes 12 hostages up with him, the response is not blow up the building. The response is you first negotiate, try to get every innocent person saved, and then you go and try to enact justice against that person while trying to not kill as few innocent people as possible in the process.
Makes sense.
But the immediate Israeli response should have been this. Look, it should have been fortify your borders, have a true investigation to find out how the hell it is possible that the most prepared fortress of a country allowed the most surveilled area in the world, which is Gaza, to commit what the most obvious attack would have been. Like, this was not 9/11. This was not like, I know they could say George W. Bush got that one piece of intelligence that said planes into buildings, but planes into buildings was still a pretty wild thing to actually have happen. People crossing over the border from Gaza to kill Israelis is what you always had your eye on. So how in the hell did this possibly happen?
I told you earlier how it happened.
Well, okay, one second. How in the hell did this possibly happen? How was the response time so long? What exactly happened here? Let's look into some of the more gruesome details about what really went on, what some of the firsthand accounts are, and then you should absolutely hold Benjamin Netanyahu and the Likud party accountable for this strategy of propping up Hamas and funding them that blew up in their faces. This is just what the Times of Israel piece the day after, I believe it was either on the 8th or the 9th. It was either 1 or 2 days afterwards said, well, Benjamin Netanyahu's strategy blew up in his face. If there was a SWAT team, let's say a murderer, serial killer, he's on the run from the cops, and he's held up in a school. And they're like, okay, he's in this elementary school. And then the local police or your state troopers or even the FBI said, all right, well, here's our plan. We're going to blow up the school. How'd you feel about that? Would you say, oh, that's law enforcement. They're doing a great job? No, you would say that is unacceptable. And in fact, if they did that, you would not sit here and pretend that they cared about human rights or they really were trying to not kill kids, but there was one bad guy in there, right? But see how that's totally acceptable when it's in Palestine? Now, all I'm saying is this. Look, even if you want to come at from the most pro-Israeli point of view, where you have no value on Palestinian life, let's say you don't care, whatever. We got to kill Hamas, so we're going to kill all those kids if you have to.
I never said that.
I'm not saying that. Listen to what I'm actually saying. Let's say that's your attitude. Still, go in with your eyes open and understand what that's going to be perceived as from the other side. Because if anybody ever had that attitude with my kids, I know what my attitude toward them would be. And you can say, oh, this is just, Islam is a crazy religion and we're going to blame them for everyone. I don't know. I'd feel the exact same way if anyone had that attitude with my kids. I'd be ready to join up with whoever the craziest group was who wanted to go get those people back. What was the American attitude after 9/11? We gave George W. Bush a blank check.
Yeah.
Do whatever you want to do. Drop bombs on whoever the hell you want to drop bombs on. Because we are pissed off because we got hit and someone else has to suffer for this. Or was it really the people who did it? Is it just innocent people who are dying?
Now we're suffering.
Whatever.
We're the terrorists.
Okay,
we are the terrorists in our country.
The Muslim world has had 1,000 9/11s. And if you sit here and go, look, just imagine, try to imagine, be really genuine here, okay? Because we're going to see it. We're so much better than the Islamic world. And you know what? I generally do think we are. But even us, who's so much better than them, imagine not one 9/11, but 1,000 9/11s happened here. What would that look like? And then let's say after 1,000 9/11s happened here, let's say whoever, Iran did it. And then Iran invades and they overthrow our government. And they prop up their own government. And now they rule us. What do you think the toughest right-wing militia members in America would be doing? They'd be throwing Molotov cocktails through their government building. They'd be running up suicide bombing themselves. And I bet they'd yell something about Jesus before they did it too. Because they'd probably start clinging to their religion. So I'm just saying that, like, if we're unwilling in this debate, in this divide, to make a real effort to put ourselves in their shoes and go, what would we do in that situation? Gaza's the only one's at real threat of being eradicated right now. And the only threat to the state of Israel is if they continue down this path. Truth is that Israel, talk about how radical Islam is, Israel has made peace with Egypt. They've made peace with Jordan. They've made peace with Saudi Arabia. They've made peace
Not yet.
No. When I say they've made peace, I mean they haven't been at war with them. I'm not saying they signed onto one of these dumb Trump Abraham Accord deals, which is BS anyway. We get into that if you want. But I'm just saying they're not at war. They haven't gone to war with any of these countries. There's one little sliver of Muslims who they haven't made peace with, and that might have something to do with the fact that they've been occupying them since 1967.
And yet none of those Muslims...
I mean, there's a lot of reasons for that.
These Palestinians are so innocent. Why is it that every 55 Muslim majority countries don't want them?
What's interesting about that is that it's kind of funny to be like...
Maybe they know how uncivilized they are.
Isn't it like, it's not an excuse to just be like, if you were like, hey, you're being brutal to these people and they're not at peace with you, and you go, well, other people are being brutal to them. But I'll tell you, part of the reason... They don't want them, but why don't they want them? Well, part of the reason, and there's many... Part of the reason is that, they're bribed by the U.S. government. But aside from that, is because they know that if they were to take all of these Muslims in, that represents Israel getting 100% of what they never had a right to get anyway. And that the truth is that a lot of these people, as probably all of us would, they feel like they have a right of return to this land that was historically theirs. In this moment, just try to imagine if instead of going on mass killing sprees and just slaughtering innocent Muslims by the millions over the next 20 years, imagine we had just done the special ops missions in Afghanistan. We had trapped Osama bin Laden in Tora Bora when we could have in late 2001, and we decided to let him go so George Bush could fight his war in Iraq. Imagine we had done that and then called the whole thing off. And then we had said, all right, look, we took a real hit here, but we get what the grievances of the other side were. And that doesn't mean we're not going to try to kill the people who killed us. Once you do that, you cross the line. We're trying to kill you. But we're not just going to start slaughtering innocent people over this. Come off like a hippie here, but I actually think I'm in good standing with conservative right-wing tradition, where what America is supposed to be is a city on a hill, not engaged in entangling alliances, not the empire of the world. Actually, maybe that's the most conservative thing you could say as an American. But we had an opportunity to do something. And so what I think Israel could have done here, and would do if America pressured them to, because all it takes is America saying, we're not going to back you on this unless you make an actual move for peace, is they could have had an opportunity to say, we're going to rise above this. We're going to demonstrate that we have respect for Palestinian life. We do not have any respect for the people who are responsible for this attack. We're going to do everything we can to kill them. But we're moving toward an actual peaceful solution here. We're giving you a real proposal of a two-state solution, not like the BS Oslo Accords. We're actually offering you what you want. Okay, you guys want to be your own government? You can be your own government. We will stop controlling the electricity and the utilities and your airspace and your water space and your ports of entry. We're not going to control that anymore. We're going to let you be your own government, but now you are responsible for what your government does going forward. Now, I'm not saying this would be perfect. I'm not saying that what's happened over the last 100 years didn't happen. But at some point, we've got to stop perpetuating this cycle. And what Israel's doing right now, look what Hamas did.
I mean, Trump did try to do that on his way out with the Palestinian prosperity plan that he had.
Okay, well, he had 4 years and he didn't do any of it. So